And the mistake that founders make who are very passionate and have a vision of something they want to change is they believe that all they need is their vision and money to build whatever they have in their head. And it turns out almost never is that right.
And that I think a lot of startups maybe take inspiration from Silicon Valley, but that sometimes becomes maybe a copy rather than solving a problem here. And we have so many problems here that are worth working on.
Universities need to rethink their curriculum for the 21st century to integrate innovation and entrepreneurship from end to end. Well, I'm Steve Blank. I'm an adjunct professor at Stanford University in the engineering school. I'm also a senior fellow at Columbia University. I was a serial entrepreneur for 21 years. I did 8 startups. And then I ended up teaching and helped start something called the Lean Startup Movement, which is a way for startups to build their companies efficiently and quickly.
I'm Ed Rubesch, the program director of the Innovation-Driven Entrepreneurship Center at the University of Thai Chamber of Commerce. I originally went to MIT and graduated mechanical engineering and worked for a small high-tech startup in the Boston area before I moved to Thailand 27 years ago. During that time, I started 4 companies, mostly in automotive and a little bit in machine design. And from that, it led to me getting into entrepreneurship development.
And the mistake that founders make who are very passionate and have a vision of something they want to change is they believe that all they need is their vision and money to build whatever they have in their head. And it turns out almost never is that right, because in their mind they're actually solving a problem for customers they haven't talked to. And so the mistake is staying inside your building and not testing your hypotheses or your guesses about who are you building this for, what problem are you solving, and whether what you're building actually matches their problem.
And that I think a lot of startups maybe take inspiration from Silicon Valley, but that sometimes becomes maybe a copy rather than solving a problem here. And we have so many problems here that are worth working on that there's a lot of opportunities instead of just trying to do the Thai language or the Thai version of something in San Francisco.
So if all you're doing is copying a large company, it's not usually productive. What you have is the ability to understand things faster and better than a large company. And so you could decide that you're doing one of 3 things. One is you're entering a market that already exists, and maybe you're going to make something cheaper. Or maybe you understand something about the market that the large company didn't notice changed. There's different dynamics or different culture or different needs. And so you've gotten out of the building and you discovered something, an opportunity that didn't exist before. Or 3 is you understand that the world has changed completely and that there's disruption happening, and you potentially could be the disruptive player. And so you need to figure out which one of those 3 kind of plays are you in if you're a startup.
Startups or entrepreneurial ventures are good at things that big companies are not good at. And big companies are good at things that entrepreneurial startups are not good at. And if you allow yourself to blur the 2, the big company is going to win. But if you find those places where big companies aren't particularly good, entrepreneurs can always win. And that's usually in a place where big companies are forced in the direction they have to go in because they're already big. They're in that market, they're in that industry, they have people who are experts in that. And that forces them in a direction. Entrepreneurs have the luxury to be able to go anywhere, to try anything that works.
So remember, a large company, as Ed said, has gotten large because they've done things repeatable and scalable time and again. But innovators exist in large companies as well as they do in startups. Even if you have that, something else is missing. You need an entrepreneur inside that company who knows how to take that idea and make it all the way through all the processes inside of a large company that want to stop innovation. So even though you might have an innovator, you also need an internal entrepreneur inside of a company. Now, a company has another advantage over startups, that they could do something startups can't, and they could buy innovation. So they could partner with a company, they could do a joint venture, they could be a distributor, they could buy intellectual property, or they could buy the entire company. And that is something that small startups can't do at all. Well, the irony is, of course, corporate venture capital is designed to invest in things outside the corporation. But most of the time, the people that are starving for corporate funding are the innovators inside the company. And so there's very rarely, not as easy to get, I mean, you almost have to quit the company, go get funded, and then you have a startup, which I find incredibly ironic. The other is corporate venture capital swings back and forth between, are they investing for products and services that make sense to align with the company, or are they investing as a traditional VC to make profit and drop that to the company's bottom line? And so that changes with the economy and changes over time. Right now, at least in the United States, corporate venture capital is somewhat focused on both. They're investing in AI and machine learning, but they're also acting as accelerators to growth funds, saying, well, it looks like we can make some money here too. Yeah. So they're kind of depends where you are and who they are. So disruption is not a new concept. So disruption has been a continuous thing. The only thing we're facing now is disruption is coming at multiple industries at the same time.
Many companies in Thailand are able to survive by protecting themselves. Thailand is a fairly protective country when it comes to, so big companies are protected, they're not particularly strong outside of Thailand. And that's unfortunate because eventually, well, there's two outcomes. Either it'll stay protected forever and that will just be Thailand and the rest of the world will move on, or those companies will not know how to compete when the time comes.
So a couple of things that in the US, that there's a phrase for that protectionism called rent seekers. Yeah. And so rent seekers in the US are automobile dealerships and wherever where there are laws that protect incumbent industries. And it turns out that that kind of behavior strangles innovation in its crib. So if you have protection in that area, you will have no innovation in that area. But if other places in the world are innovating, your country or community is now at a disadvantage on a national level because you protected a small group on a personal level. It usually doesn't end up well for the country.
The region can become very, very good opportunities for great businesses. But as long as we hide from that and kind of protect, we're not going to reach out to that opportunity. So we're doing ourselves longer term.
These are great questions.
One advantage universities have is time. Usually if you're in a university, you're not rushing to get you don't have a job, you don't have, all the constraints of being in a company or an industry or whatever, or even the government. So that's the biggest thing that the universities can provide is this nurturing environment for coming up with ideas.
If you think about innovation and entrepreneurship, it's not just how to start a company. There are skills that everyone are going to need to know in the 21st century, that are very different than the skills we needed to operate in the world in the 20th century. How to be entrepreneurial, how to operate in a digital world, how to be creative, how to whatever. So there's a series of classes that the university could offer that are entrepreneurial and innovation skills, but don't necessarily mean you need to take those skills and now do a startup or even work in a startup. Innovation and entrepreneurship is the new liberal arts of the 21st century. And so what universities could do is realize they need, much like liberal arts, a continuum of classes from basic creativity and how to deal with fake news, how to work with people, how to work in teams, all the way to, I want to learn a class on how to build a startup. And so I think the answer is universities need to rethink their curriculum for the 21st century to integrate innovation and entrepreneurship from end to end.